So Ricky graduates high school, and between his craptastic grades and his contentment for living at home, he decides to go to Monmouth College, which is literally across the street from our house. But for whatever reason, he decides to crack the books for the first time, and he makes the dean's list. And everybody's very impressed. But he's still hanging out with his Long Branch friends, including Ernie, who's also going to Monmouth College and playing for their Division IIA basketball team. And remember, our house was across the street from Monmouth College, so Ricky's bedroom became like a tiny fraternity house inside of our house. There is a lot of noise and people coming and going at all hours, and my dad is not happy. There's a lot of yelling, and then one night, a particularly intense yelling and screaming. My dad had caught Ricky selling pot out of the house. John's a good kid. I don't want him growing up around you and this shit. So it was decided Ricky would take his dean's list grades and transfer. And he does, to the University of Florida. So I am now safe from Ricky's potentially damaging influence, but Ricky is now vulnerable to the almost certainly damaging influence of the University of Florida. Not for nothing, but that was one of the most, maybe still is, notorious party schools in the country. Plus, Quaaludes were at the absolute zenith of their popularity, and with no one more so than with Ricky. And just to make absolutely certain, he, within 5 minutes of getting there, joined a fraternity. Meanwhile, I had spent my post-presidential years honing my class clown skills like some sort of diamond-tipped blade. And up until that point, I had been able to balance quite nicely the twin rigors of clowning and academia. But then I hit a slight bump in the road. The D in Algebra 2. There was widespread panic. My parents were called in for emergency meetings with my guidance counselors, wherein outlined for me in grave and stark detail was the lifetime of misery and deprivation and hardship that surely awaited me if I didn't straighten up, buckle down, fly right, various different verbs and prepositions. The truth of the matter was, that algebra teacher was kind of a dick. Okay? Don't get me wrong. I was completely out of control, a colossal pain in his ass. And I'm not saying he should have coddled me and made me viceroy of the class or some shit. But it wasn't all me. We were a bad combination. I got a little cocky. I knew I basically understood the concepts he was teaching, and I overestimated my ability to not pay any attention to him at all. It got away from me. Still, a D is a D. It's hard to maintain your status as the good kid, the exceptional child expected to go on and do great things when you're getting Ds, unless, you know, your dad was rich and used to be president. Okay? This reviewer found Ross's ham-fisted political barbs misplaced. But look, everybody knew, my friends knew, it was embarrassing, it was humiliating. I didn't like this status now, the new status as the dumb guy. I resolved then and there not to repress my need to clown and focus on my academics. Speaking of academics, Ricky in Florida decided to major in accounting, which I just never pictured Ricky the rebel as an accountant. It seems just sort of square. Pictures, I remember a Polaroid of him from back then, where he had one of those like colorful rayon shirts, open a few buttons too low, the bell-bottom pants, probably elephant bells, you know, with the platform shoes. He had the big hair chopped straight across at the shoulders, a giant bushy Fu Manchu mustache. I'm trying to imagine your taxes being done by Frank Zappa or one of the Hudson brothers, perhaps. But he was, you know, doing all right, making progress toward graduation quite nicely, though he still had the party light on. I remember when we got the word that the sweet old Buick Riviera my dad had given him had been totaled. I have a recollection of it having been found in a body of water somewhere. That may not be accurate. But my dad was irritated, but at this point, he's got his eyes on the prize, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel. Which I think if you're a parent in that situation, it's college graduation, right? I mean, he was like a boxer in the late rounds, his corner man going, look, you got this thing won. Just stay away from him, cover up, don't do anything crazy. My dad's like, it's just a car. Good thing nobody got hurt, you know. If Ricky was doing all right academically, he had, as far as I was concerned, hit the jackpot socially. He was engaged to be married to his girlfriend of a couple of years, Nina. Nina was absurdly stunning. She was some sort of actual beauty queen, like Miss Teen Florida or something. He brought her home for a visit once. I was in 11th grade, a mass of raging hormones. I couldn't stand to look right at her. Taut and bronze. She was easily the most gorgeous, sexy woman I had ever seen who wasn't folded in thirds. And she was soon to be a college graduate. Albeit from the University of Florida, but still. I thought she was perfect. After graduation, they were to move to New Orleans and get married. Back in high school, I had buckled and straightened and was flying, and I was getting straight A's, and I was a standout on the gymnastics team, and I was on all sorts of different extracurricular clubs, including the math league. I would go in a van to neighboring high schools and solve math problems competitively. So clearly I wasn't wasting a lot of time dating. But I felt this dilemma as college was coming and we were all trying to decide what we wanted to do. I excelled at math and science, but what I felt I really was an artist. I had a talent for it, I loved it from very early on. And then one day it hit me, architecture, the perfect blend of art and science. And so I signed up for an architecture class, and I took it, and then I sent off my materials to the University of Virginia School of Architecture, and I got accepted. And almost as soon as I did, I started having doubts. Did I really like architecture, or did I just think it made sense? And I started to worry that I would find some of the ancillary stuff, soil densities and weight-bearing loads, boring. I don't know. And I honestly can't say which came first, my doubts or my dad's aspersions. My dad had made his living in the housing business. After he returned from the service in World War II, he was a bomber, a navigator on a B-25, and he was shot down over German-occupied France and escaped with the help of the French underground and hiked through the Pyrenees Mountains back to the American embassy in Spain. Ooh, aren't you the greatest generation? But when he came back to the States, he somehow got involved in a business selling prefab garages that somehow morphed into a business of selling prefab homes, mostly to returning vets with GI loans, and he thought he knew something about the housing business. Let me tell you something about architecture. Architects, only the top guy ever gets to design anything. Everybody else, just a glorified draftsman carrying out that guy's orders. Maybe he was right. Maybe he thought he was just supporting a decision he saw me coming to on my own. But all I heard was, look, you and I both know you're not going to be that top guy. For whatever reason, I decided not to pursue architecture. And so before I even got there, I transferred to the School of Arts and Sciences. So I was cruising through my senior year of high school, discovering beer and Mexican dirtweed. Remember that? Secure in the knowledge that in the fall I was headed to the University of Virginia. To study what? I had no idea. Oh, and then we found out Ricky got shot. Act 2.